Hi, good morning. My name is Steve Dana and I work with the WSWHE BOCES on the Race to the Top network team. And today's webinar is going to be about the Measures of Effective Teaching project, the Bill and Melinda Gates funded initiative which has some pretty interesting and fascinating results. So we're going to go to our PowerPoint now and you can follow along. Okay, so the webinar is based on two things. One is a network team training session that was presented by Amy McIntosh and Kate Gerson, who are New York State Senior Regents Research Fellows. And the other piece is the MET Project Policy Brief, learning about teaching, initial findings from the Measures of Effective Teaching project, and the URL is listed below. Really, three questions can be drawn from these analyses. First of all, is effective teaching measurable? And if so, how do you measure effective teaching? And most importantly, what does the research say? Here's the training I mentioned earlier. So the MET project is a three-pronged look at measures of teaching. The traditional classroom observation piece, student assessment piece, and student perceptions piece. So there are three parts to this innovative look at measures of effective teaching. The study is broad and involves a number of different locations and participating teachers, over 3,000 that were part of this study. And these are some of the schools that have new initiatives regarding evaluation systems. You might be interested in checking them out. But going back to the uniqueness of the project, first of all, it's unique in the variety of indicators that were used. 5 instruments for classroom observations were part of the project. Student surveys from Ron Ferguson at Harvard University, the tripod survey, and then value-added measures on state tests. The study was also unique in its scale. Broad, over 3,000 teachers, 22,500 observation scores, 900 plus trained observers, and nearly 45,000 students completing surveys and supplemental assessments. And it was also unique in the variety of student outcomes studied. In addition to the gains on the state math and ELA exams, they also looked at the balanced assessment in mathematics and the Stanford 9 reading measures. In addition, they looked at student-reported outcomes such as effort and enjoyment in class. So what are the best measures to relate to student outcomes? Well, to ensure validity, we looked at different teaching indicators, observations, surveys, gains on state tests, and then a combination of those indicators. And then the student outcomes, gains on state tests, gains on supplemental tests, and then positive feedback. There were 3 criteria in this measure. One was the predictive power. In other words, how well do these indicators of effectiveness project for a new group of students for a given teacher? Would you see the same gains with a different group of students based on the original measures? Second thing is, how reliable or consistent are these measures? And then the third is, what is the potential to help a teacher see areas of practice needing improvement, i.e. Potential for diagnostic insight? So when you look at this chart, this kind of captures the essence of the 3 measures in terms of predictive power, reliability, and potential for diagnostic insight. H represents high, M moderate, L low. In terms of the value-added component, value-added measures have a high predictive power. Teachers that have success in one class will have a likely success with a new group of students. High predictive power. Moderate reliability, but low potential for diagnostic insight. State tests oftentimes do not provide that opportunity for diagnoses. In terms of student surveys, the predictive power is moderate, the reliability is high, and the potential for diagnostic insight is moderate. And then the traditional measure of effective teaching, observation, low predictive power on how students will perform on state measures, but moderate to high reliability and high potential for diagnostic insight. In fact, one might say that the greatest value of teacher observations is the opportunities they provide to help teachers grow in their craft. So here's some key findings. One, all the observation rubrics, all 5, of which the Danielson frameworks for teaching were one of them, are positively associated with student achievement gains. 2, multiple observations are very important, and ideally by different observers. Furthermore, averaging the scores of each observation is a more reliable indicator of effectiveness. People vary lesson to lesson by content, or perhaps certain children are having certain issues at a given time. Averaging scores is a much more reliable indicator. The third piece is the student survey part, which also tested positively for student achievement gains associated with student survey items. When you combine the different measures, the student feedback, the value-added growth results and state tests, and the student survey results, you have a much better predictor of a teacher's value added on state tests with a different set of students than any measure alone, than the number of teachers that have graduate degrees or the years of teaching experience. And lastly, combining measures is also a strong predictor of student performance on other kinds of tests, tests that are more open-ended, that require constructive responses. When we look at the Danielson frameworks and we look at domains 2 and 3, which were observed in the classrooms, there are 8 components that were targeted, ranging from managing student behavior and creating an environment of respect and rapport, down to using questioning and discussion techniques and communicating with students. This is interesting data. First of all, green is good. In fact, dark green is really good. Evidences of advanced practice and proficient practice were highest for managing student behavior and creating an environment of respect and rapport. Yellow and red are not so good. And at the very bottom, we can see that communicating with students and using questioning and discussion techniques were areas where there was less evidence of effectiveness by teachers when we look at the Danielson frameworks for teaching as a rubric. This is fascinating. Student feedback related to student learning gains. So the items I'm going to show you are those with the strongest relationship to middle school math gains based on student survey reports. Item number 1 with the highest ranking, that had the highest, strongest relationship to middle school math gains, where students felt in this class the students are treat the teacher with respect. Students in this class treat the teacher with respect. The strongest correlation to middle school math gains. The next strongest, my classmates behave the way my teacher wants them to. The third strongest, our class stays busy, doesn't waste time. Bell to bell. The fourth item, in this class we learn a lot every day. And the fifth, in this class we learn to correct our mistakes. Mistakes are opportunities to learn from. Those items with the weakest relationship to middle school math gains were in rank 38th. I have learned a lot this year about the state test. And 39, getting ready for the state test takes a lot of time in our class. Clearly, test prep Fridays and other measures don't warrant the time when we look at the other items that have a much stronger correlation to middle school math gains. Let's now take a look at the dynamic trio, or combining the various measures together in terms of predictive power. We have 3 rows. We have the framework for teaching, then we have the framework for teaching and student survey, and then the framework for teaching, student survey, and value added. Our second column, we have the top quartile, top 25%, bottom 25%. And then the third and fourth columns, state math, months gained or lost, state ELA, months gained or lost. When you look at the first row, framework for teaching, you can see that the top quartile, top 25% of teachers, the months gained in math were about 1.2. In ELA was 0.2. The months lost for the bottom 25% were 1.4 months for math and 0.4 months lost for ELA. Interestingly, when you add the student survey data and regroup the top 25 and bottom 25% teachers based on the effectiveness of those 2 criteria, you see a 2.8 month gain for math and a 0.7 month gain for ELA. And for the bottom quartile, a negative 2 month loss for math and a 0.9 loss for ELA. When you combine all 3, you'll find that the top quartile of teachers have a 4.5 month gain in math and a 1.2 month gain in ELA, versus for the bottom quartile, a 3.1 month loss in math and a 1.3 month loss in ELA. The power of combining these different measures is clearly evident through this chart. Well, what does that mean in terms of whether or not a person has a master's degree or their years of experience as indicators of or measures of effectiveness? Well, once again, we can see that the combination of the frameworks for teaching, student survey, and value-added measures clearly outweigh the presence or lack of a master's degree or years of experience. We're not saying they're not relevant or important. However, if we're trying to predict measures of effectiveness, the best predictors are to use a combination of a teaching rubric, perhaps the Danielson frameworks, a student survey, and value-added measures on state tests. The combination is like a cocktail effect. It's significant. With classroom observations, we want to be sure we're doing them well, high quality. So there's a pathway that goes with that. First of all, we need to clearly define those expectations for teachers. That means we do sessions. We involve teachers in the analyses of the various rubric options. We look at videotaped instruction and we practice using rubrics together so we get a clear sense of what these rubrics are looking for and the different levels of performance. And then we ensure the observer accuracy piece. Are they measuring what they're supposed to be measuring? And their reliability. Are they measuring consistently? And then, of course, how does all of these data align with the outcomes that we're looking for? So, some guidance to practitioners to wrap things up. First of all, we need to be sure that we choose an observation instrument that sets clear expectations. That we require observers to demonstrate accuracy before they rate teacher practice. And that when high-stakes decisions are being made, multiple observations are necessary, and that those observations be averaged so that we get a good representation or more reliable representation. We want to make sure that we have system-level reliability by double scoring some teachers with impartial observers. And of course, we want to combine observations with student achievement gains and student feedback. Student survey data is powerfully important, and the diagnostic opportunities it provides merit its use in any measure of teacher effectiveness. And lastly, we want to regularly verify that teachers with stronger observation scores also have stronger student achievement gains on average. So I hope this helps you understand whether or not it is possible to measure effective teaching and how one goes about doing that in an objective and a manageable way. Thank you.